Hello again everyone, and welcome to my Warlock point of view raid guides. In this guide I'm going to cover the encounter Omnotron Defense System Heroic. Now this encounter is fairly crazy. As you're aware, all of the 4 golems have different abilities, and Nefarian can cast a spell where he basically empowers one of these abilities. Now first one we got up is Arcanotron. Now generally it's safe to stand in his pools, but if Nefarian uses his ability on Arcanotron, he will explode the pool. As Arcanotron's the first one up, it means the pool is guaranteed to explode. You take a buttload of damage if you stand in that, so really don't. You do have a reasonable amount of time to move. Normally in these guides I talk about use of Banes here, but I'm really not going to, because although some people say that it doesn't trigger the shields, we really didn't want to take that risk, so I don't use Bane in this encounter. Next one we got up here is Electron. Now Electron has a crazy ability. He casts this electric debuff on someone where they just pulse and do damage to the people around them. If Nefarian empowers this one, it will turn that buff into the exact opposite. Now it will do more damage the further away from the raid you're stood, so you must immediately all group up on one spot and use healing cooldowns to survive this. You can see whilst Arcanotron's up, we really do need to use these pools. The enrage timer on this fight isn't particularly strict, but it will weigh you down. You can see moved on to Toxotron now. Toxotron spawns clouds as he does normally, except Nefarian can randomly death grip the entire raid into these clouds, so you have to be ready to move out of them and regroup wherever you're supposed to be. Now on to Magmatron. Now for his empowered ability, he will do the lock on and flame in a single direction, but Nefarian will root the person who gets this. Remember, whenever Toxotron is up, always kill his adds. See, I'm getting away with AoEing these because they're quite close together, but if they start to spread out, you must immediately switch to single target. The adds are highest priority. If they hit someone, they leave a massive pool and do a lot of damage. Also, I put up a power aura here which displays a kind of stop symbol whenever one of the things gets to 50% energy. I know the shield doesn't activate till about 35-40 energy, but you really want to make sure you switch before this happens. It is absolutely imperative that you switch. Make sure you've macroed pet attacks into your spells if you need to make sure your pet's always attacking the target you're attacking. The imp can trigger it. We've had Ebon imps from Bane of Doom trigger it. You've got to be very careful with this. Some of the shields are less harmful than others, but you really shouldn't be setting any of them off. That's me moving towards a pool and it immediately explodes. That's a good show. Once you've seen the encounter, once you've seen all of the combinations once, it should just repeat, but being as Nefarian can randomly empower one or the other of the abilities, it can be very difficult to know what to do. So in this case we've got Toxotron up, so he could death grip us in there, but he's also got Arcanotron up, so he could explode the pool we're stood in. Always be prepared for the worst one. If you ever get the shadow beacon, make sure you've got a place to group up. There's so much movement in this fight, you'll naturally spread out. That's why you don't have your melee run into the adds. A couple of the adds got set off there. There's a shadow conductor. See, we all group up, get under a bubble. Luckily one of the people got hit. There's a shaman, I think. Basically with Magmatron's ability, when he locks onto someone, the raid moves away from them. Always assume they're going to be rooted. As always with Toxotron, never forget his adds. Be very careful when target switching here. Oh, there we go, there's a death grip into the poison. Immediately move out of that. Very careful when target switching, make sure you do not damage a shield. It's incredibly easy to do. Just always be alert. Set up a little warning in power auras if you're like me and you just don't want to accidentally make the mistake. Always be aware of the raid position as well. As a ranged DPS, you're going to be wanting to stand in these pools whenever they're up, but be aware that anyone at any time could get that shadow thing, or you could be death gripped as a raid into a pool. So be mindful of your position. And that was terrible timing for an infernal. Generally, you want to use your infernal when heroism is called, and heroism should generally be called once Arcanotron's up and the raid is not in any danger of being moved. So you've got a nice amount of time to do as much DPS as possible. As destruction, I tend to AoE the ads with Rain of Fire and then pop my Shadow Fury after the first Rain of Fire just to do as much damage as I can whilst it's still gathered up. See, this is a terrible combination. We've got a poison pool up, we're forced to group up in the poison pool, and then we get an incineration security measure, so well done to our healers for that one. And now we've got ads and the whole raid's been moving together, so luckily I don't think any of these explode, but it does. Ooh. And we get death gripped into a pool. You can see why this encounter is so frustrating. You can get a run like that where just the worst thing in every situation happens in a big row. Always remember to interrupt Arcanotron. His Arcane Annihilator just have a tendency to one-shot people. Make sure you've got solid interrupters on him. I saw the other Warlock using Infernal there. Be very careful when you summon your Infernal, because if the ads are grouped together, then you do have a chance of damaging the shield of the other one. Similarly with Shadow Flame, you've got to be careful when you use that, because it can hit both the targets. Some of the shields are worse than others, but you shouldn't be hitting any of them ever. Let's see if I get Lightning Conductor. Luckily this doesn't turn into Shadow Conductor. You'll know if it's going to turn into Shadow Conductor because a big kind of shadowy line appears between you and Neff. If you do have this, you move out, I think it's 2 or 3 ticks of the lightning buff, and then immediately switch to shadow, so have a priest death grip you back into the group, or heal grip you, life grip you, whatever. And if not, just run into the raid. There's a Shadow Conductor, we have to get under the bubbles. Don't be afraid to use your personal shields. I've got nether protection here. I'm popping my shield whenever I can. Preferably pop it during one of the AoE, Shadow Conductor or Incineration security measure. You can see as focus is lost slightly, we're spending more of our time recovering from the effects of the abilities than actually being able to DPS the boss. So the first 75% went down in about 5 minutes, and then we're whittling away very gradually at the last few percent. As always, staying alive is considerably more important than doing DPS. Another exploding pool. See the way the bosses are positioned, we're having to move an awful lot to get into these pools. Getting close to the end, but quite a few of our DPS are dead, so you also notice the enraged timer is gradually sneaking up on us. one of the adds there wasn't slowed, so it's run off. That could potentially cause a pull. Luckily it doesn't. Oh, and a shadow conductor, so... And I'll let the raid explain how they feel about this.
Nice! Oh.
Thank you for watching. I've been Optec of Trollbane Europe. Cheers.